The night my wife told me she wanted to live without me, she smiled while saying it. Not the nervous kind of smile people use when they're about to hurt someone, not the sad kind either. It was calm, peaceful, almost relieved. That was the moment I realized something inside our marriage had already died long before she said the words. And the worst part, I was the only one who didn't know. The rain tapped softly against the windows of our small house in Seattle. Outside, the streetlights reflected off wet asphalt, turning the neighborhood into a quiet, glowing blur. Inside, the air smelled like garlic and roasted chicken. Dinner sat untouched on the table between us. 2 plates, 2 glasses of wine, 10 years of marriage sitting silently between us. Emily looked across the table at me like I was a stranger she had politely invited to dinner. Her fingers traced the rim of her wine glass before she finally spoke. "I've been thinking a lot lately." Those words should have scared me. But they didn't. Not yet. "About what?" I asked, cutting into my food even though I suddenly wasn't hungry anymore. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stood up and walked toward the kitchen window, staring outside at the rain. Her reflection in the glass looked distant, detached. Like she had already left this house. "I feel like I lost myself," she said quietly. I leaned back in my chair. "What do you mean?" She turned around slowly, folding her arms. "I mean, I don't know who I am anymore, Daniel." My stomach tightened. That sentence, that exact sentence, is the beginning of almost every divorce story you hear. "I'm your husband," I said carefully. "We're married, people change, that doesn't mean." She shook her head. "You're not listening." Her voice wasn't angry. That made it worse. "I don't want this life anymore." Silence swallowed the room. Rain against the windows. The hum of the refrigerator. The ticking wall clock that suddenly sounded 10 times louder. "What are you saying?" I asked. Emily took a breath. "I want to live for myself." The words hung in the air like smoke. "Without you." She didn't say it immediately, but we both knew it was coming. "I want to live for myself without you." There it was. Just like that. 10 years reduced to one quiet sentence. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. The explanation. The "I'm joking." But it never came. Instead, she looked almost relieved. Like someone who had finally set down a heavy bag they'd been carrying for years. "You can't be serious," I said. "I am." "What about us?" I asked. "Our life, our plans." She gave a small shrug. "Those were your plans, Daniel." That hit harder than anything else. I stood up slowly. "What does that even mean?" "You wanted the house, the quiet life, the stability, the routine." "And you did," I asked. She laughed softly. "I convinced myself I did." There was a pause. Then she said something that made my chest feel hollow. "But I was wrong." The rain outside got heavier, tapping louder against the glass. My mind raced through 10 years of memories. Our first apartment. Late-night pizza on the floor. Road trips down the California coast. The day I proposed at a small beach in Oregon. She cried when I put the ring on her finger. Happy tears. At least, I thought they were. "You're throwing all of that away?" I asked quietly. "I'm not throwing it away," she said. "I'm moving forward." "Forward?" "Without me." "So what? You just wake up one day and decide I'm not part of your life anymore." It wasn't one day. Her voice softened slightly. "It's been building for years." Years. Years she felt this way, while I kept thinking everything was fine. "You should have talked to me," I said. "I tried." "When?" "Every time I said I felt stuck," she replied. "Every time I asked if we could travel more, take risks, try something new." I frowned. "We went to Florida last summer." Emily stared at me like I had just proven her entire point. "A resort vacation isn't a life change, Daniel." "Then what do you want?" I asked. Her eyes sparkled with something I hadn't seen in a long time. "Excitement." "Freedom." That word landed like a stone in my chest. "Freedom." "From me." "Is there someone else?" I asked. Her expression didn't change. But the 2 seconds of silence before she answered told me everything. No. The words sounded rehearsed. Too clean. Too simple. I walked to the sink, gripping the edge of the counter as I tried to steady my breathing. You know what the crazy part is, I said. What? I didn't see this coming at all. She didn't respond. Because there was nothing she could say. After a moment, she picked up her wine glass and took a sip. I'm not trying to hurt you. I laughed quietly. That's exactly what you're doing. I can't live a life that feels like a cage. A cage. That's what our marriage was to her. A cage. You had a pretty comfortable cage, I muttered. Nice house, financial security, a husband who actually loves you. Emily rolled her eyes slightly. Love isn't enough if you feel trapped. Those words burned. Because to me, love was everything. But to her, it was just not enough. What happens now? I asked. I move out. When? She looked around the room slowly. At the end of the months. I nodded. 30 days. 30 days until the woman I built my entire life around walked away. But something strange happened in that moment. Something unexpected. Instead of anger. Instead of begging. Instead of trying to convince her to stay. I suddenly felt very, very calm. A quiet thought formed in the back of my mind. Emily wanted freedom. She wanted a life without me. A life where she could live for herself. And for the first time that night, I realized something important. If that's what she wanted, then maybe I should give it to her. Exactly the way she asked. And maybe exactly the way she deserved. For the next few seconds, neither of us said anything. Emily sat back down at the table and continued sipping her wine like we were discussing weekend plans instead of dismantling a decade of marriage. I watched her carefully. The calmness in her face. The strange lightness in her shoulders. She wasn't heartbroken. She wasn't conflicted. She had already left this marriage long before tonight. I see, I finally said. Emily looked up, almost surprised by how quiet my voice sounded. That's it, she asked. That's what you want, right? I replied. Her eyebrows pulled together slightly. You're taking this very calmly. Inside my chest, something was burning. But I had already learned something important in life. When someone shows you they've already given up on you, the worst thing you can do is beg them to stay. I guess I just didn't realize I had been holding someone hostage for 10 years, I said. Her jaw tightened. That's not what I meant. Sure sounds like it. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, then stopped. Maybe she realized there was no way to say what she wanted without sounding cruel. I'm not saying you're a bad husband, she said carefully. That's comforting. I'm saying I need something different. Something different than loyalty. That's not fair. Neither is dropping this on me over dinner. Emily looked away again. The rain outside had turned into a full storm now. Wind rattled the windows, and thunder rolled somewhere far off. It felt fitting. Look, she said after a moment, this doesn't have to be ugly. I almost laughed. You just told me you're leaving our marriage because you feel trapped, and you're hoping it won't be ugly. We can handle this like adults. I am, I replied. I pulled out the chair across from her and sat back down. You want freedom, I get it. Her shoulders relaxed a little. I knew you'd understand eventually. But she misunderstood something. I didn't understand. I accepted. Those two things are very different. So what's the plan? I asked. Well, I'll probably get an apartment downtown. Downtown Seattle. Yeah. That's expensive. She shrugged. I'll manage. Another pause. Then she added something casually that made my stomach twist. I might travel a little too. Travel with who? I asked. Friends. Friends. Sure. The same mysterious friends she had been texting more often the past few months. The same friends she suddenly needed girls' nights with twice a week. I remembered all the times she came home late with vague explanations. The sudden gym membership. The way she started locking her phone. Funny how everything makes sense once the truth finally shows up. But I didn't push it. Because honestly, it didn't matter anymore. You should take the car, I said. Emily blinked. What? The Lexus, I clarified. You like it more than I do. That's generous. Consider it a parting gift. She studied my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. You're really okay with this? No. But she didn't need to know that. I want you to be happy, I said simply. For the first time that night, she smiled. A genuine smile. Thank you for understanding. Understanding. That word again. She stood up and walked around the table, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. I really do care about you, Daniel. That almost broke me. Not the words. The tone. The soft, pitying tone people use when they're comforting someone weaker than them. Of course you do, I said quietly. You're an amazing man. Amazing men apparently get replaced. She leaned down and kissed my cheek. A small, polite goodbye kiss. Like we were coworkers finishing a meeting. I'm going to stay with Megan for a few days, she said. When? Tomorrow morning. Fast start. I think it's better that way. Probably for her. Before I could respond, she walked upstairs. A few seconds later, I heard drawers opening. Suitcases sliding across the floor. Packing. I sat at the dinner table alone for a long time. The food had gone cold. The wine bottle was half empty. Thunder shook the windows again. 10 years. I replayed them in my mind like scenes from a movie. The late nights working overtime so we could afford this house. The promotions I turned down because she didn't want to move. The vacations I planned. The life I built around her happiness. And in the end, she called it a cage. I stood up slowly and carried the plates to the sink. Then I poured the rest of the wine down the drain. Something inside me had shifted tonight. Something quiet. Something cold. If Emily wanted freedom, then I would give her freedom. Complete freedom. No arguments. No drama. No begging. But what she didn't understand yet was that freedom has consequences, especially when you walk away from someone who is holding your entire life together. Upstairs, I heard the zipper of a suitcase closing. I walked to the staircase and looked up. Emily. She appeared at the top of the stairs a moment later. Yeah. One question. Okay. I leaned casually against the railing. When did you stop loving me? She hesitated. Just for a second. I don't know, she said softly. That was a lie. People always know. They just don't want to say the real answer out loud. That's okay, I replied. She nodded slowly. Good night, Daniel. Good night. She disappeared into the bedroom again. A few minutes later, the lights upstairs turned off. I stayed in the living room, staring out at the storm. The rain kept falling. The thunder kept rolling. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a plan was beginning to form. Not revenge. Not anger. Something far more powerful. Clarity. Emily wanted a life without me. And tomorrow, I would start making sure she got exactly that. Every single part of it. Even the parts she hadn't thought about yet. I barely slept that night. Not because I was heartbroken. Strangely, that part had already started fading. What kept me awake was something else. Clarity. When someone you love walks away from you without hesitation, it forces your brain to replay everything with brutal honesty. All the small signs you ignored. All the little compromises you made. All the moments where you convinced yourself things were fine. By 3 a.m., I realized something uncomfortable. Emily didn't suddenly wake up unhappy. She had been slowly disconnecting for a long time. And I had been too busy being a good husband to notice. Or maybe too afraid to. Around 7 a.m., I heard movement upstairs. Closet doors. Footsteps. The sound of a suitcase rolling across the floor. I sat at the kitchen island with a cup of black coffee, staring at my laptop. Numbers filled the screen. Bank accounts, bills, investments, mortgages, all the quiet responsibilities that keep a life stable. Things Emily had never really paid attention to. Not because she was irresponsible, just because she never needed to. I handled everything. She came downstairs about 20 minutes later. 2 suitcases, a travel bag, and the same calm expression she had worn the night before. "Morning," she said softly. "Morning." She looked at the coffee machine. "Is there any left?" "Fresh pot." She poured herself a cup and sat across from me. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Like any other morning. Except the suitcases sitting beside her chair reminded us both that nothing was normal anymore. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "A little." "You?" "Not really." She stirred her coffee slowly. "I know this is hard." Hard? That word sounded almost insulting. But I let it go. "I'll call a moving company later this week," she continued. "I can come by and grab the rest of my stuff." "No rush," I said. "You can take whatever you want." She nodded. "Thank you." Then she glanced at my laptop. "What are you working on?" "Just organizing things." "Things?" "Financial stuff." "Oh." She didn't ask any more questions. Which made sense. Money was never something she worried about. Our mortgage was always paid. Bills were handled. Investments grew quietly in the background. She trusted me with all of it. That trust would become very important soon. Emily took another sip of coffee. "I was thinking about. We should try to stay friends." I looked up slowly. "Friends?" "Yeah, I mean, we shared 10 years together. It would be sad to just erase that." "Erase?" She had already erased it. But again, I kept my voice calm. "Maybe," I said. Her shoulders relaxed. "I'm glad you're being mature about this." Mature. Interesting choice of word. She stood up and carried her cup to the sink. Then she walked back, grabbing the handle of one suitcase. "Well, I guess this is it for now." I nodded. "For now." She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around me. A quick hug. Polite. Distant. The kind you give someone you used to know well. "I hope you find happiness too," she said. I almost smiled. "Oh, I will." She pulled away. For a brief moment, something flickered in her eyes. Confusion, maybe. Like she expected me to be more broken. More desperate. More emotional. But I was. Not anymore. "Take care of yourself, Daniel," she said. "You too." Then she walked to the front door. Opened it. Cold Seattle air rushed into the house. She dragged the suitcases down the porch steps. And just like that, my wife walked out of my life. The door clicked shut, and silence filled the house. I stood there for a long moment. Then I walked back to the kitchen, sat down, and opened a different tab on my laptop. The title read, Joint Asset Overview. This was the part Emily never paid attention to. Because she trusted me, every major asset we owned was in my name. The house, the investments, the retirement accounts, even the Lexus she loved driving. Technically, we were married, so legally things could be divided later. But right now, control belonged to me. I scrolled through the document slowly. 10 years of careful planning. Savings. Decisions. Sacrifices. Emily had called that life a cage. But what she didn't realize yet was that the cage she was escaping from was also the foundation holding everything together. Freedom feels amazing at first, until the safety net disappears. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text message from Emily. "Emily, just got to Megan's place. Thanks again for being understanding red." I stared at the message for a moment. Then I typed back, "Daniel, of course, I want you to have the life you want." 3 dots appeared instantly. "Emily, That means a lot. I set the phone down. Then I picked up another one. My work phone. I scrolled to a contact and pressed call. "Good morning, Daniel," a familiar voice answered. "Morning, Richard." Richard was my lawyer. And also a longtime friend. "What can I do for you?" I leaned back in my chair and looked around the empty house. At the photos on the walls. The life that had just ended. "I need to start divorce paperwork." There was a short pause. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Did something happen?" "My wife decided she wants to live for herself." Richard sighed quietly. "I'm sorry to hear that." "It's fine." "All right," he said, "we can start the process today." "One more thing." "Go ahead." "I want everything handled cleanly." "What does that mean?" I looked out the window at the gray Seattle sky. "It means she gets exactly what she asked for." "And what's that?" "A life without me." Richard chuckled lightly. "That's pretty standard in divorce." I shook my head slowly. "No. You're missing the point." A quiet pause followed. Then Richard said carefully, "Daniel, what exactly are you planning?" I closed the laptop and smiled faintly. "Nothing cruel. Nothing dramatic. Just fairness." Because Emily wanted freedom. And I was about to show her what freedom really costs. The next few days were strangely quiet. Too quiet. The house felt bigger without Emily in it. Every room echoed with the absence of her voice, her footsteps, the random music she used to play while cooking. But the silence didn't feel painful. It felt clarifying. For the first time in years, my life wasn't revolving around someone else's happiness. And that realization changed the way I started looking at everything. 3 days after Emily left, I met Richard at his office downtown. Rain had stopped for once, but the sky over Seattle still hung heavy with gray clouds. Richard sat across from me at a large oak desk, flipping through a stack of documents. "All right," he said finally, "let's talk about reality." I leaned back in the chair. "Okay. First question," he continued, "do you want this divorce to be hostile or cooperative?" "Cooperative," I replied immediately. His eyebrows rose slightly. "That's mature. Hostility wastes time. And money," he added. "Exactly." He nodded and slid a document toward me. "Here's the situation. Most of your assets were purchased under your name before the marriage or funded through accounts that were already yours." "Correct." "The house is technically yours." "Yes." "The investment portfolio is yours." "Yes." "The rental property in Tacoma is yours." "Yes." Richard exhaled slowly. "You were very organized." "I like stability." He leaned back. "Well, stability works in your favor." "What about alimony?" I asked. "That depends on how aggressive she wants to be." Emily had always worked part-time. Graphic design. Freelance projects. Enough to keep herself busy. But not enough to fully support the lifestyle she was used to. Realistically, Richard continued, she could ask for a decent settlement. And realistically, you could fight it. I thought about that for a moment. Then I shook my head. "No fights." Richard studied me carefully. "You're being very calm about all of this." "I told you," I said, "I want it handled fairly." "And what does fair look like to you?" I folded my hands on the desk. "She gets her personal belongings." "Of course." "She keeps the Lexus." "Okay." "And I'll offer a small financial settlement." "How small?" "Enough to give her a fresh start." Richard waited. 50,000. He blinked. "Daniel, that's extremely generous." "Is it?" "She could easily demand more." "But she didn't." He tilted his head. "You're assuming she won't." "I know Emily." He tapped his pen thoughtfully. "You sound confident." "I am." Richard nodded slowly. "All right, if she accepts those terms, the divorce could move very quickly." "That's the goal." But there was one part Emily hadn't thought about yet. "The house." Speaking of the house, Richard said, almost reading my thoughts, what do you want to do with it? I looked down at the paperwork. 10 years of memories lived inside those walls. But something had shifted. I'm selling it. Richard looked surprised. That's sudden. Not really. You love that house. I love the life inside it. There's a difference. He nodded slowly. Well, the market is strong right now. You'll get a good price. That's fine. We finished the paperwork an hour later. As I stood to leave, Richard asked one last question. Daniel, can I ask something personal? Sure. Why are you being so generous? I paused near the door. Then I gave him the honest answer. Because I want her to experience exactly the life she thinks she wants. He frowned slightly. I'm not sure I follow. She said she felt trapped. So you're letting her go? Completely. Richard leaned back in his chair. You know, most people would try to punish their spouse in this situation. Punishment isn't necessary. What do you mean? I opened the office door and said something that would make a lot more sense later. Reality will handle that part. Later that week, Emily came by the house. She texted before arriving. Emily. Hey, I'm stopping by around 3 to grab some things. Is that okay? Daniel. Of course. At exactly 3:07 p.m., her car pulled into the driveway. The Lexus. She stepped out wearing sunglasses, jeans, and a leather jacket. She looked lighter, like someone who believed they had escaped something heavy. When she walked inside, she glanced around the living room. Wow, she said softly. What? It already feels different. How? Quieter. That word again. Quiet. I guess that's what happens when someone moves out, I said. She smiled awkwardly. I didn't mean it like that. Don't worry about it. She walked upstairs to pack more clothes. I stayed in the kitchen. About 20 minutes later, she came down carrying 2 bags. You changed the coffee machine, she said. Yeah. You always hated the old one. I did. Another small silence settled between us. Then she spoke. Megan says I can stay with her as long as I want. That's nice of her. Yeah. Emily hesitated before saying the next part. I've actually been thinking about moving to California. That caught my attention. California. Los Angeles, maybe. Why there? More opportunities. For what? She didn't say. But I could guess. New life. New people. New freedom. That sounds exciting, I said calmly. Her eyes searched my face again. You're really okay with all this? I told you. Yeah, but most people would be angry. Anger wouldn't change anything. She nodded slowly. I appreciate how mature you're being. Again with that word. Mature. Before leaving, she paused near the door. Oh, one more thing. What's that? My credit card got declined this morning. That's strange. The joint one. I leaned casually against the counter. Oh. Did something happen with the account? I shook my head. I closed it. Her eyebrows jumped. You what? It didn't make sense to keep a joint account open if we're separating. Her mouth opened slightly. I guess that makes sense. She tried to sound casual. But for the first time, I saw a tiny crack in her confidence. A tiny glimpse of reality. And this was only the beginning. Emily stood there for a moment, clearly trying to decide how to react. It was subtle, but I could see the calculation behind her eyes. For years, the financial side of our life had run quietly in the background like electricity in the walls. Bills were paid, accounts stayed healthy, and she never had to think about it. Now she was thinking about it. Well, she said after a second, forcing a small laugh, I guess I should probably open my own account then. That would be a good idea. Another small silence. Then she grabbed the door handle. Anyway, I'll text you if I need to grab anything else. Of course. She stepped outside. But before she got into the car, she turned back. Daniel. Yeah. Thank you for not making this harder than it has to be. I gave her a calm nod. Take care, Emily. She smiled once more, then drove away. And that was the last peaceful moment she would have for a while. 2 weeks later, reality began knocking. The first message came on a Tuesday afternoon. Emily. Hey, quick question. I had just finished a meeting at work when the text appeared. Daniel. What's up? 3 dots blinked for a long time before her reply came. Emily. Do you remember the password for the Netflix account? I almost laughed. Daniel. I canceled it. Another pause. Emily. Oh. Then a second message quickly followed. Emily. What about the Spotify family plan? Daniel. Also canceled. Emily. Right. 10 minutes passed before she texted again. Emily. This is going to sound dumb, but do you know the login for the power bill at the house? Daniel. You don't need it anymore. The house is going on the market next week. This time, the response took longer. Emily. Wait, you're selling it. Daniel. Yes. Emily. Already. Daniel. It doesn't make sense for me to keep such a large place. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Emily. That was our home. I stared at the message for a moment before replying. Daniel. You said you wanted a new life. She didn't respond. A few days later, Richard officially sent the divorce proposal. It was clean. Simple. Fair. Emily received her copy that afternoon. And about 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Daniel, her voice said the moment I answered. Hi. What is this? I'm guessing you received the paperwork. You're offering me $50,000. Yes. That's it. Her voice carried a mix of confusion and disbelief. You're keeping the house, the investments, everything. You're keeping the Lexus. That's not the same, and you know it. I leaned back in my chair. Emily, everything listed was legally purchased through my accounts. That doesn't mean I didn't build that life with you. You chose to leave that life. Silence. Then she exhaled sharply. This feels unfair. I kept my voice calm. You said you didn't want the life we built. I said I wanted freedom. And I'm giving it to you. That's not what I meant. What did you mean? Her voice cracked slightly. I thought we'd divide things. You're getting a settlement. $50,000 is barely anything in Seattle. That's why you mentioned moving to California. She went quiet again. Then she asked the question that had been sitting between us since the beginning. Daniel, are you punishing me? I answered honestly. No. Then why does it feel like it? Because for the first time since she walked away, she was realizing what walking away actually meant. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm respecting your choice. Another long silence. Then her voice softened. I didn't think it would happen this fast. Neither did I. But 10 years together, and it just ends like this. You ended it. I thought we would stay connected somehow. Connected. Friends. Shared safety nets. Comfort. She wanted freedom, but she also wanted the benefits of the life she left. Life doesn't work like that. Emily, I said gently. You said you wanted to live for yourself. Yes. And that's exactly what you're doing now. There was a quiet sound on the other end of the phone. Like she had sat down suddenly. I think I made a mistake. Those 5 words hung in the air. A few weeks ago, hearing them would have shattered me. Now, they felt strangely distant. What kind of mistake? I asked. I thought I was unhappy because of our life. And now, I don't know. I could hear the emotion creeping into her voice. Megan's place is crowded. I'm sleeping on a couch. Everything is expensive and... She stopped. And what? I asked. Nothing feels stable anymore. Of course it didn't. Stability was the thing she had just walked away from. Daniel, can we talk? In person. I looked out the window of my office. The Seattle skyline glowed under the evening sun. For the first time in a long time, my life felt quiet. Peaceful. Under control. I don't think that's a good idea, I said. Please. You already made your decision. I was confused. You were clear. Her breathing grew shaky. I don't want to lose everything. You didn't lose it. You gave it away. Another long silence followed. Then she whispered something that perfectly closed the story. I thought freedom would feel better than this. I nodded slowly, even though she couldn't see me. Freedom always feels amazing in the beginning, I said. Until you realize what it costs. Her voice broke. Daniel, please. But this time, I wasn't the man begging someone to stay. I gave you exactly what you asked for, I said calmly. A life without me. Then I ended the call. And for the first time in years, I finally started living for myself too.